Welcome back. How'd everything go, lowlife?
I, I failed. We couldn't retrieve the stone. We couldn't even get a new member.
Well, how'd you go about it?
All according to protocol.
Hmm. I think it's time to change our ways going about it. I think we, as an organization, need a catalyst for change.
What's crack-a-lack Toxic Crew, and welcome back to the Heilige region. It's been a while, and you've done some training to the point where some of your Pokemon have evolved. So, let's start out with Smalar. Smalar, at level 10, evolves into Termini. This bog and rock type has pincers strong enough to crush small boulders, and despite having developed vocal cords that is capable of noise akin to speech, they clap together their pincers to communicate, a la Morse code. And 10 levels later, Termini evolves into Termite. The pincers have been known to move at near lightning speeds and can cut steel with ease. In the olden days, Termite were used as execution devices. Dirtrot has also evolved. Feathrush evolves into a ground flying type. As a predator, Feathrush uses calculated movements to strike Smalarv. Their wingspan, while average, has a certain aerodynamic property that allows them to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just a few seconds. And with that, let's get right back into the story. So last time we left off in Domu City, after you, alongside Professor Cassid, Jazz, and Kamuzu, beat up an unknown stranger trying to recruit young'uns into their organization. So after that, Kamuzu and his Vervatera take their leave, with Jazz following close behind, all while Professor Cassid packs up her stuff and puts it in her RV and skedaddles. Ricky follows closely behind, but not before slinking up to you and handing you a note. All it has on it is some gibberish language as well as a cool emblem, but it shouldn't be of much concern right now. But speaking of Ricky, and since you've met his evolved form Vervatera, I might as well spill the beans on this rapscallion. Ricky is a Semineral, the mischievous Pokemon. This grass and rock type is a cheeky little fooker and can climb trees at amazing speeds with dexterity to boot. It uses the weights on its arm to add to its punching power. At level 34, provided it learns Rock Polish, it evolves into Vervatera. But after leaving Domu City, you will proceed into Wildlands Route 4. And before I can say more, can I just say that the whole concept of the wild area is very similar to the wildland routes that I've created? I'm not saying that they are copying me in any way, I just found that really funny. Getting back on track, Wildlands Route 4 has a much more varied biome, having more green areas with a marshy area. Here you can find a Dumb, Salandit, Wimpod, Nincada, Bullbaby, and a new Pokemon named Gazap. Gazap is a timid Pokemon in a pure electric type. Gazaps are low-key afraid of everything, and it will be easily started from the simplest of things. But after you get through the wetlands, you meet Jazz and Kamuzu at a Lolongway base town, dubbed Chitsamba City. Chitsamba City is a very natural and lush city, and the prime attraction of this place is the nature preserve that houses the grass-type Rite of Passage. So for those who forgot, the Rites of Passages are equivalent to gym badges in Heilige, and you've already faced the ground-type chieftain, Akita, and you got the seismic jewel alongside his signature in your travel journal. Kamuzu, who you met in Domu City, is the chieftain of Chitsamba City. After you enter his passage grounds, you meet his sister, Esh, alongside her Girder, who also runs the nature preserve when Kamuzu is away. She gives you a long strand of rope where you attach it to yourself and try to round up a herd of Gazap while maneuvering around poles, Mario Party style. Do this a couple times with two other species of Pokemon, being Wimpod, who run away faster, and Huttall, the shelter Pokemon. This dark and grass type is mistaken for a teepee, but it doesn't really mind that much. People while exploring the safari often bring them to help get through the night. Round up 2 of these tall fellows into their respective places and it opens the door into Kamuzu's chamber. And there you battle Kamuzu, who has himself a super strong Huttall and his ace, that Vervatera that beat up that one dude. After you beat him, he gives you with the growth jewel and his autograph, and as you are leaving, you hear Esh screaming. You and Kamuzu rush out of the passage grounds to find Esh nowhere to be found. What you do find is one of the hats of those creeps back in Domu City, but still no Esh. This puts Kamuzu in a panic, but you gotta get going. Jazz bumps into you, seemingly in a daze. He was standing outside the Pokemon Center with his Pokemon and saw 3 shady figures in gray, 2 of them with weird patrol caps, with a young woman being dragged with a bag on her head. You proceed to follow him until you get to the start of regular Route 5. In Route 5, you can encounter Timber, Palpitoad, Bronzor, Apom, Stuffle, Wimpod, Gazap, Fethrush, Mineral, and a new Pokemon that I'll get to soon. There are 2 exits on this route. One goes to a town based off the city of Blantyre, and another goes to a town based off the city of Lusaka. At the Lusaka-based town, in which I've called the Zobisoka Juncture, you are stopped by one of the shady figures, who says the lines, "Catalyst personnel only." So I might as well spill the beans. The main baddies of the story is called Team Catalyst, and while I won't be detailing their motives or even their goals right now, but what they're doing right now is taking people hostage and converting them to their cause. But back to the story, you sneak your way into the back entrance of a large storefront. This is a sub-area in the Zobisoka Juncture, aptly called the Catalyst Juncture. You battle through some Catalyst grunts who use steel, dark, and ground types such as Hyena, Excadrill, Graveler, Huttall, and Celestork, the Starshine Pokemon. This dark and fairy type is said to come from the stars, and its feathers are so revered from the collectors as it sparkles like outer space. You can also find Celestork in Route 5, that was the one I was talking about earlier. So as I was saying earlier, you go through the juncture, and when you get to the center, you find 2 rooms. One is a room filled with chairs with clamps and screens, with a room full of people like ace trainers, youngsters, veterans, and even preschoolers. And the other is an office with an old grizzled man inside. This man's name is William, and he is with a Catalyst admin named Austin. She is beside William and is finishing up something with a Catalyst grunt. Austin stops you and you have to fight her. She sends out a Salazzle and a Girder. After you defeat Austin, she hides behind William, trying her best to keep her composure, but you see something akin to a glitch in the system, seeing something vaguely familiar about her. But after that, William stands up. He calls it his ace, a new Pokemon by the name of Cannifidile. This fighting and dragon type acts as the final evolution of the pseudo legendary of Heilige, and is very aggressive when it comes to its territory. The naturally sharp scales can be used to attack and can even dislodge from the body and be used as projectiles. But instead of a battle, because old Willie here ain't having any of that, he sends out his Cannifidile and commands it to use its signature move, Lash Out, which in battle takes a turn to charge, then executes a multi-hit move to just kick you out, not peacefully. Jazz finds you after you wake up on the floor with all of your Pokemon at 1 HP. Jazz heals your Pokemon, and as soon as you see some of the better characteristics from behind that arrogant facade, he locks himself back up and challenges you to a battle. Jazz has now a new and improved team, consisting of the first stage evolution of the starter that's better than yours, so either a Nectarus, Pyrox, or a Kwame, who we showcased last time, a Fethrush, a Bronzor, and Lololis, the evolution of Bulbaby after exposure to a Sunstone. This grass and fairy type is actually resting on a lily pad and is not its actual body, as it only uses it as a spot to photosynthesize on. The core of Lololis stores the excess sunlight energy and will be used as a bright flash to scare away others to survive. So naturally you beat him and he skedaddles away. So you mosey on over out of the Catalyst Juncture, out of Zobisoka Juncture, and from the other end of Route 5 to the other town based off of Blantyre, which I call Ganizarani Town. This is a simple town, having a place akin to a church, a large park area and a few houses, an apartment complex and a tent in said park, etc, etc. I want to give the impression that this is a very homey town, something away from the big industrial junctures in City Square. You first see a woman in the distance that walks away, looking at Jazz as he walks by. And if you visit the tent, you will see a very familiar, curly-haired Foog. And if you can't feel the sheer sarcasm just radiating from the voice, the guy is me. I don't have any bearing to the story, I'm just kinda there as an Easter egg. But the thing is, Ganizarani Town harbors the next rite of passage. So when you go to the church area, you meet a kind woman named Caitlin. She is very inviting and to help you out with your adventure in charting out the entirety of Heilige by helping you find places to chart out. If that makes sense. To make it a bit clearer, you give her your map and she marks 2 big red X's on the northern part of the map as well as this small island off to the coast. She said that in order to find out what lies at those locations, you're going to have to go through her trial. So let's just get right into it. Caitlin runs the normal type rite of passage, and as it is based off of a church, there isn't really much to do in terms of puzzles or whatever, but I have devised a way to make it at least somewhat interesting. What I came up with is that the main aisleway is blocked when you start, and you gotta maneuver around a maze to get to the chieftain. Sure, you will have to fight some people, mainly those who are sitting down and you stepped on their toes, but other than that, it isn't too bad. Caitlin on her team has an Ambipom, her ace Beware, and Treadlin, the Curla Pokemon, and a normal and rock type. Treadlin is always in a wheel-like state and rolls around to traverse the rocky terrain. The only downside to this is that the sides are exposed, so if it gets hit, it'll fall over and just be helpless. And while I'm at it, I might as well show the evolution and pre-evolution. Meet Pancoil, the Curla Pokemon, and a normal type. When learning to roll around, which is the preferred way of travel, it stumbles a lot and falls over. Its cries are so loud, it alerts other Pancoil or other Treadlin to help its plight. Level up to level 25 with the move Rollout and evolves into Treadlin, and level up again to level 35 to evolve it into Spikeoil, the spiked wheel Pokemon. This normal and rock type uses the natural spiky skin to shred through wherever it goes. So you defeat Caitlin, and like clockwork, she gives you her autograph and the helper jewel. So you make your way out of Ganizarani Town, and make your way down to Wildlands Route 6, where you can find Pancoil, Beware, Palpitoad, Lil Lotus, Ninjask, Salazzle, and the evolution of Gazap. Antilite. This pure electric type are no longer afraid of everything like they once were, and are now a bit more thoughtful, and will only run if they know they are outmatched. Instead, they use their horns that are charged with electricity to joust with it. So after you make your way through Wildlands Route 6, you end up in a Nampula base town, which I call the Yari Cape. But before you can explore, a Catalyst grunt sneaks up behind you and quite literally knocks you out. Oh boy, more evil subplots. But as you wake up, you find yourself in a dark room with nothing but you, your chair that is clamping you down, and an ominous figure in the distance. Once you see her come out of the shadows, it is revealed to be Austin, who is still very upset about what happened prior to this. She demands a rematch, this time having an Antilite, a Salazzle, a now involved Conkeldurr as her ace, and Mashreek, the face-shaped Pokemon. This Ghost and Seal type gets a kick out of scaring people shitless. It's said to feed off of that. Anyway, after this time you defeat her, her visor cracks, revealing more of a familiar face. After her exchanging a glare, she brings out a remote and presses a button. Austin spits out a fit of maniacal laughter, spouting things like, "I've activated a whole new clan of sleeper agents. There's no way you will defeat us in our plan to awaken and control all Pokemon here in Heilige." So, yeah, all those Pokemon that you saw in one room in Catalyst Juncture, as well as all the people you saw in the Catalyst Juncture, are now basically all Catalyst sleeper agent grunts. It's all brainwashing. Hooray. But as soon as you get the hell out of there, you meet up with Jazz, and he looks a bit panicked. He says stuff along the lines of,
Chief, I know we aren't close, or may not even like each other, but I need your help.
You agree, but as he is still skeptical and finds solace through Pokemon battles, he challenges you to a Pokemon battle. Jazz has a very similar team from last time, but this time with some new members. He has a Lolotus, a Bronzong, the starter evolution, and the evolution to Feathrush.
William, the boss, he is a very
Earthrush,
powerful
the
man.
stoic Pokemon. This ground and flying type is said to have been kept by royalty, and due to that past has adopted a stature and a commanding presence, and takes pride in commanding other, lesser bird Pokemon. So you take your Pokemon and slap Jazz's Pokemon, then that prompts him to talk. He takes you to a small cafe, which is a location in the Yari Cave. He goes on a spiel about how fearful he is about King Catalyst, but he lets this little bit of nugget of information slip.
He drove my mother away and moved from Domu City to Yari Cape. This is where my mother lives, as she is the water-type passage chieftain. I don't know what happened to William, but after he heard of a Pokemon by the name of Indriene, he went mad and he left me and my mother. Haven't seen him in years. It's very hard. Please, I need your help.
Alright. This is Indriene, and is the legendary of the story, the cover legendary if you will. This varying grass type is known as the Blessed Pokemon, and contains the essence of all other Pokemon, and if anything were to happen to it, all other Pokemon would be affected in the same way as well. This confirms Team Catalyst's grand scheme. William is brainwashing innocent people to serve under them to find a legendary Pokemon to brainwash them into obeying William's command. And all of this before the 4th rite of passage do you learn this. But after you leave the cafe, Jazz thanks you for listening, but then puts back up his tough exterior. Then you make your way onto an aquarium that makes up the big tourist attraction, and you get to meet Jazz's mother, Chazio, she being the woman that you saw in the distance in Ganizarani town. Her rite of passage is based off of an aquarium. On the interior of the walls you can see Pokemon that you may or may not can find in Heilige, like Wimpod, Piplup and Primplup, Seismitoad, Marill, Barboach, Wishcash, and Puddalo. This pure water type can conceal itself in puddles of water, but can easily be identified with a distinct blue fin that pokes up above the puddle if not trained properly. There's also Hydrosnail. This water type is very slow, but its shell is filled with very pure water, and will distribute them by secreting them through the crevices in their shell. So the puzzle here is a very unique one, as you have to gather supplies like bags of sand, artificial flora, etc., as well as maneuver pipe formations to help rebuild the broken Hydrosnail exhibit. The kicker here is that people don't want you to tamper with the aquarium, as moving a pipe from one area may affect another, say the Barboach exhibit. So if you move one thing here, it may affect another thing there. So this is definitely one of the most time consuming and most challenging puzzles in the region, but it is satisfying when you fix all of it. After you fix it, a door in the glass pane will open and will reveal stairs to Chazia's chamber. So you finally meet Chazia formally, and she asks about Jazz. You tell her that he's doing fine, and that gives her relief. Now invigorated, the rite of passage will come to its end with a battle. Her team consists of a Palpitoad, a Golisopod, and 2 evolutions to Pokemon that we just introduced. Meet Titolo, the Water Buffalo Pokemon. This water and fighting type is very brash and has perfected the water hiding technique that it was trying to master in its previous evolution, and it can basically dissolve underwater. And when you evolve Hydrosnail, you get Glacial, the frosty Pokemon. It is a water and ice type. The water in its shell has now reached negative 50 degrees Celsius and has frozen over, making Glacial very cold and very slippery. And when you evolve that even further, you get Chazia's ace, Slushtopod, which is the final evolution of Hydrosnail and is the Avalanche Pokemon. Slushtopod is a very relaxed Pokemon and uses melting ice on its underbelly to skate faster. Obviously, you win, and you get awarded with the title jewel and her signature. And as you leave, Jazz pushes you out of the way and rushes into the passage ground, breaking stuff in the aquarium. So you make your way out of Yari Cape and back to Wildlands Route 6, which has had some rain, so you can also now find Hydrosnail, Glacial, and Puddalo in one side of the area. You can also make your way back to Ganizarani Town, where you can meet up with Caitlin, who is very disheartened, as many of the people in the town have left with a spooky glow in their eyes. She asks you to see her friend Tonde Yari, whom in which she abbreviates to Tond, in a Bulawoe-based town named Moya City. So you make your way down to Wildlands Route 7, the longest and most expansive wildlands route in the region, containing many different places to explore, including caves, a graveyard area, a savanna-like area, and a waterhole and lake. The Pokemon you can find here are a combination of the new, the old, and the interesting. You can find Parasect, Vibrava, Titolo, Mandalas, and a whole slew of new, fresh faces. First up is Aggravate. This is the first in the evolution chain of Conipodile. This fighting type is a very aggressive little fella. Even when it's just being hatched from an egg, it has the desire to just fook shit up. And the evolution to Aggravate, who you can find here but only 1% of the time, is Ferocicroc. This fighting and dragon type is now growing out its special scales, which is used in primitive times to craft weapons. Thirdly, there's Aardvenom, the toxin Pokemon. Aardvenom uses a special chemical mix that deters other Pokemon off, and uses it to make itself homes in caves. Next up is Elefrost, the snowstorm Pokemon. The skin of Elefrost is said to be as tough as titanium and as cold as dry ice. It uses its trunk to drink water and make gas to conceal not only itself, but also Pokemon that are freer of predators. Lastly, there's Flair. This fire and grass type is constantly on fire. No, that's not a joke. Flair is always on fire in some way. But the thing is, the leaf on fire never really burns, it just kind of remains on fire. Scientists don't really know how to explain that. It just is. And with that, you find your way to Moya City, which is actually built on a hill with an ancient offering shrine, and you get a sense of a dark and dreary place that is disguised as a city. You see a young woman corralling hordes of Pokemon that are acting like zombies, calling out her Shedinja to section them off. She introduces herself as Tonde Yari, and you tell her Caitlin sent you. She tells you that she is busy with all this, but if you want to take on her rite of passage, you're gonna need to help her out with all this. So yeah, you're gonna have to fight through a lot of civilians that only use 1 or 2 Pokemon that are very low level compared to your level 40 to 50 Pokemon right now. They send out Pokemon like Apom, Stuffle, Timber, and the previous evolution of Mashreek. Mascared. This is the face-shaped Pokemon and is a prankster. It switches itself for masks in museums to scare people with, just to screw with people. But after you plow through around 5 or 6 people, they all disperse in lesser numbers. Tonen tells you to head up to the peak of Moya Mountain to attempt a rite of passage. After you make your way up the mountain, where the city is based on, so no Pokemon appear because it's a city, you find Tonen at the peak. She signals you to come inside the cave and you see the whole glory of the passage grounds. It's a whole cavern system that you have to maneuver around like a maze to find her at the center. Once you find Tonen at the center of the caverns, she explains a little bit more about Indriene, and after a bit, she snaps to her senses and a battle initiates. She has a Mass Shriek, a Bayonet, and her ace, Shedinja. And yes, it does have Wonder Guard, so good luck with that. You beat her, and she rewards you with the Bone Jewel after a small fit, as well as her signature. She also gives you one of 2 fossils, either the Tooth Fossil or the Scale Fossil, as she is feeling generous. So you skedaddle on out of the passage grounds, now with 5 signatures and 5 jewels to your name. And when you make your way out of the town, you have a few routes you can take. If you remember those big X's on your map that Caitlin drew up, you are nearest to the northern X. This is actually a Luanda-based town that covers up a forest where Indriene is supposedly residing, in which I named Sagrado City. We will not be going there until Toximon episode 4, but I might as well have given y'all a heads up in that this place that we're going to be exploring next episode. There is also another, more mountainous path out of Moya City that leads to a Gaborone-based city named Moya City. This is a city without a rite of passage, but it does contain some of the most technological and cultural advances in Hall of Heilige. But you gotta traverse through regular Route 8, and you can find here Mandibuzz, Shuppet, Aardvenom, Flair and its evolution, as well as 2 new Pokemon. The evolution to Flair is Burleaf, the Fire Leaf Pokemon. Burleaf uses the fire to invigorate its muscles to do tasks that it couldn't normally do. There's also Folimber, the Zebra Pokemon. This pure fairy type is very clumsy and is said to be a nice pet for smaller families with small children. Lastly, there's Ryern, the Iron Armor Pokemon. This steel and psychic type has armored plating to protect itself and can retract into the armor while sleeping. It may not have a rite of passage, but it does contain some of the most scientific and philosophical mindset. For the purposes of the narrative, you can revive your fossils, in which I'll reveal them all here. When you take the Tooth Fossil and resurrect the Pokemon inside, you get Rasucho, the Speedster Pokemon, and a Rock and Fighting type. It can outrun many types of Pokemon nowadays, and can even go up to Mach 3. Evolve Rasucho and you get Suchumile, the Rush Pokemon. This Pokemon has been told to be feral to the point where it'll eat anything as long as it can move. It may be smaller than a Tyrantrum, but it can easily devour it as long as he catches it, which is 9 out of 10 times. And when you resurrect what's in the Scale Fossil, you get Cerebust, the Intimidation Pokemon. This Pokemon uses its head not to hit things, but to outsmart other Pokemon. It is said to have been smarter than all other prehistoric Pokemon. And when you evolve Cerebust, you get Megalobe, the Inquisitive Pokemon. The cerebral cortex is said to be stuffed to capacity and can assess any situation in seconds and find the optimal path to travel or combat. And when you enter Moya City, you do not see a bustling city full of technology and culture, but you do see a bleak city full of very familiar gray-clad Catalyst grunts that are being summoned to a giant statue in the middle of the city. You get a closer look, and you see something that makes you and all the other normal citizens shudder. William and Austin are there, but they're sitting down. The one leading them is not William. William is not the leader. The one leading them is Cassid. That's it, guys, for the story of Toximon episode 3. Thank you so much for watching, as I poured a lot of time and effort into making this, and as well as the new guys that have helped me out with the music and the artwork. They have really helped me out making this reality. This is my longest Toximon video yet. Look at that timestamp. But I do want to give a shout out to all my amazing patrons who are scrolling across the screen right now. And if you want to become a patron, please look at the description down below. This is now unscripted. But if you want to chat more about what happened in this episode, feel free to join my Discord. I don't really advertise it all that much, but it's always been down there. If you want to talk about that, it's open. It's pretty cool. It's pretty chill. And with that, I'm going to go take a nap. Shoot, I forgot we need to evolve our starters. We are just approaching the 6th rite of passage, and by this time, our Pokemon have long evolved, even back at the Yari Cape. So, I don't like spoiling surprises, but it's about time we get through it right at the end of the video. First up, the evolution of Nectar Roost at level 36 evolves into Hurricavian. This grass and flying type is the honey gatherer Pokemon and uses hypnotizing melodies to have lesser birds like Pidgey and Dirtrot bring them honey, as that has enough of nutritional value to have them last a lifetime. Next up, Pyrox at level 34 evolves into Infernox. This fire and ground type uses the smoke sack horns to express emotion, and when it is angry, all the pent up rage comes spewing out in a smoky, fiery rage. And lastly, Aquame evolves into Liquizzard at level 36. This water and electric type uses its tail as a lightning rod and consumes that electricity to distribute out during battle. The electrorbs on its tail also act as a conductor, as it is water with lots of iron ions infused in it. So yeah, that's a lot of new Pokemon, a lot of new story, and more cliffhangers. It is currently very early in the morning. I'm gonna go to sleep. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support, and I can't wait to see what's going on next. But with that, I will see you later. Ciao for now.